The young woman looked again at her map, turning it this way and that, trying to figure out which way she should be going. "Excuse me, sir?" she calls out to a passing man, but he pays her no mind. A woman walks past and stops when the woman tries her hand at the local language. "Bud, Laska?" "Da?" the woman asks her. "Vi, rozmovlejete, angliskoju?" "Niet," the woman replies before continuing on her way. The young woman feels that this is hopeless. Outside of a few phrases like hello, goodbye, and where is the bathroom, her local language skills are sorely lacking. She's still at the beginning of her grand trip of Europe that saw her starting on the eastern side of the continent with the plan to travel westward and finish her journey in Paris. She's traveled a bit before, but here in this Ukrainian city, she's realizing that she may be out of her comfort zone. This trip is very important to her, though. After her parents were killed in a car wreck, she was paralyzed with grief and barely left her room for months. She decided that she needed to get away and give herself a clean break from everything back home, and so she decided to do what her parents had done when they were her age and backpack across Europe. All of the pictures from their trip showed the two of them together, smiling and happy in front of great landmarks. But here she was, alone, scared, and unable to even find her hostel. "Sir, can you help me?" she cries to another passing man, waving her map towards him. But he too ignores her pleas. The young woman zips up her jacket. It's getting late, and the setting of the sun is accompanied by a cold breeze. She looks up and down the city street, and even though there are still plenty of people around, it feels as though all she can see are unfriendly faces. Her face lights up when she spots something, though. It's a police officer. He'll be able to help her. The young woman runs towards the police officer who is standing near the side of the road, or at least she thinks he must be a police officer. His gray uniform looks a little old-fashioned, but it's neat and well-fitting, and he's holding what appears to be a baton used for directing traffic. The young woman approaches the officer, but his back is to her as he gazes out towards the street. Unsure of what else to do, she reaches out with some hesitancy and taps the man on the shoulder, causing him to wheel around to face her. He stares at her without speaking. Do you speak English?" the young woman asks. "Yes, little," he responds in a thick Ukrainian accent. "Oh, thank goodness. You have to help me, please. I'm completely lost and I don't know what to do." As people continue to walk past her without giving any notice, she goes on to explain that after arriving in the northeastern Ukrainian city, she took what she thought would be the right bus, but ended up going in the completely wrong direction. Now she has no idea where she is, and is worried she won't make it to her hostel before night falls. "Where is your hostel?" the policeman asks. "Somewhere called the..." She looks down at the words scribbled on the margins of her map. The Studentskaya?" she tells him. "Ah, yes, the police officer says. There are many hostels there, including some specifically for foreign visitors and students. She has been very unlucky, though, since it was actually near the metro station she first arrived at. He can help her get there, though. There is a bus that will take her straight there, and the stop is only a few blocks away. He can walk with her there if she likes." The young woman accepts his kind offer, and the two start heading down the sidewalk together. As they walk, he asks what she is doing in their city, and she explains how she just needed to get away and see the world. She's unsure why, but she feels like she can confide in this policeman, and she begins to explain what happened to her parents, how alone she felt at home, and how this trip is meant to be a life reset, but so far, it's off to a terrible start. "We have phrase," he tells her. "Sigda może być gorzej." "What does that mean?" she asks. "It can always get worse. This way." The police officer points towards an alleyway and starts walking towards it. He can tell the young woman is feeling apprehensive about entering the dark space between the buildings, and he assures her that it is a shortcut. There's nothing to be afraid of. The two walk into the alley together. The young woman again starts telling him about her life back in the United States, what she plans to do when she gets back, how she hopes the trip will be a turning point for her. As she talks, she fails to notice that the police officer has begun to slow. She does notice, though, that the shadow of the police officer has suddenly started to stretch out on the ground in front of her. She stops and watches as the shadow keeps moving, growing larger and larger. It stretches and lengthens, even as hers stays the same. She also realizes that the sound of the policeman's footsteps have also stopped. She slowly turns to see it standing in the place where the police officer should be. A grotesque, horrible sight. A massively tall creature with long, disgusting limbs. She's too scared to scream as she continues looking up its gigantic body, before finally looking at its face, or what's left of it. Half of its jaw hangs unhinged, as if it has been torn from its joint. and that has no ears or nose. She trembles in fear as she wonders if whatever this thing is can see her, since it also has no eyes. The last thing she sees before she turns to run is the creature lifting up one of its arms, where its hand has been replaced by a black and white metal rod that it brings down with terrifying speed and crushes her skull. Привit! Today's file exploration has taken us to Ukraine, though the anomaly known as SCP-1366-RU has been known to appear in a number of other countries as well. SCP-1366-RU is a humanoid creature that, from what the SCP Foundation has been able to observe, appears to be sapient and resembles a police officer, or militia, from the 1970s Soviet Union. It wears a long, dark gray coat, tall black leather boots, and a cap, and holds a black and white baton reminiscent of the type used by police officers in Russia and many Eastern European countries to direct traffic. When an individual begins interacting with SCP-1366-RU, they will find that they feel as if they are talking to a regular police officer and having a completely normal conversation. It is capable of exerting a mental influence over the person speaking with them, allowing it to easily mislead and deceive them, which explains why they ignore the fact that the officer is wearing a uniform that is several decades out of date. Those who pass by will not seem to notice the anachronistic clothing either, and they will pay no mind to what is happening. This same effect extends to those viewing SCP-1366-RU on a live feed, and it is only when recordings are viewed that its true form is revealed. SCP-1366-RU's actual appearance is that of a mummified human corpse, though it is taller than any human at over 5 meters in height, with arms and legs that are disproportionately long, with the legs alone making up 2/3 of its total height. SCP-1366-RU is also extremely skinny, even for a desiccated cadaver, and its limbs and head look as though they are nothing more than brown, dry skin stretched directly over bones, with no muscle at all underneath. Its left hand appears to be missing, and in its place, the creature has a black and white rod fused directly into its arm. 1366-RU's face appears as though it has suffered tremendous injuries. Its eyes, nose, and ears all look as if they have been removed from its face, and the left half of its lower jaw hangs freely in its joint as though it were torn away. Despite this damage to its face, it is still quite capable of speech, at least when people are perceiving it in its human form. It's currently unknown why, but SCP-1366-RU appears to be primarily interested in kidnapping and killing people who are in countries that once belonged to the former Soviet Union. So far, there has been no commonalities between the victims except for one thing: all of their parents were dead at the time of their abduction. Once the Foundation realized this uniting factor, they were able to create a scenario in which the anomaly appeared, though so far, this has only been successful one time. Foundation researchers located a member of Class D personnel who was an orphan, D-1935, and equipped them with a radio headset, a video camera, and a microphone, and instructed them to walk the streets of a city located in a country which was once part of the USSR. The D-Class was observed on location by members of MTF Eta 10, nicknamed See No Evil, and they watched as D-1935 suddenly stopped on the sidewalk. He was approached by a police officer with an out-of-date uniform who saluted the D-Class with his right hand. Eta 10 appeared to not see the police officer and reminded the D-Class to stay sharp and continue looking for 1366-RU. The police officer spoke to the D-Class, though only in mumbled, broken words, as if something had rendered him unable to speak. The recording equipment captured the D-Class seeming to have a one-sided conversation with the policeman, where he insisted that he wasn't lost and that he was actually out walking with his mother. Or rather, he thought he was out with his mother. It seemed to the D-Class that she had just left, and he requested the police officer's help in finding her again. The officer then took the D-Class's hand and began leading him away, eventually taking him into a dark alley. All the while, Eta 10 seemed completely oblivious to what was going on. They didn't even realize that D-1935 had left until the two disappeared into the alleyway. They began searching the area, but they were unable to locate the D-Class anywhere. It was as if he had been there one moment and then simply disappeared. Luckily, D-1935 had also been equipped with a GPS tracking beacon, but when Eta 10 looked at their locator, they were convinced something was wrong, since it showed that the D-Class was now over 5,000 kilometers away. A nearby containment team was sent to the location being broadcast from D-1935's tracker, and they arrived roughly 2 hours after his disappearance. When they got to the location, they discovered that it was coming from a very strange place: a cemetery. The team cautiously entered the cemetery and began making their way in the direction of the beacon, unaware of what they would find. When the GPS locator finally signaled that they were in the correct position, they realized that they were standing directly over a grave. Specifically, a grave belonging to the mother of D1935, who had been dead for over 50 years. There was no question, though, this was the location the beacon was broadcasting from, and after receiving permission from the Foundation, the containment team began to dig. When the coffin was finally revealed, the team readied their weapons, unsure of what they might find inside. But when they opened its lid, they saw that their guns weren't necessary. All that was found within was the mummified body of a woman. That and the body of D1935, who was curled up in the fetal position, tightly hugging the remains of his mother. Following this event, the parents of other suspected SCP-1366-RU victims were exhumed as well, and in each case, the missing person's body was found inside, alongside their deceased mother or father. SCP-1366-RU, which has been given the nickname Uncle Styopa, a play on a popular Russian children's character who is an extremely tall policeman, has so far eluded all containment attempts, and it has been classified as Euclid. Disappearances of those without living parents in former Soviet Union countries should be investigated to determine the involvement of SCP-1366-RU. Any recording devices in the area where they disappeared must be checked, and should they contain any images of SCP-1366-RU's true form, then they are to be immediately confiscated and destroyed.
London's never really quiet. Even in the dead of night, there are still taxis driving, drunks shouting, and arguments echoing from top-floor windows. Cleaners and airport staff trudge through the darkened streets on their way to work, not looking up at the bar staff and security guards plodding home. It's probably better that it never gets really quiet, though. As much as the thief would like to be able to hear the footsteps of someone else coming his way, it's probably best that the noises out on the street mask his own. His theory is proven correct almost immediately as he jumps from the overpass down onto the construction site. He makes it over the barbed wire fence, but loses his footing on the landing and falls against a porta potty. The plastic wall splits, and he clatters through into the toilet. Sticking out a hand, he manages to stop himself. You'll never guess where his hand landed. Wonderful. For a moment, he slumps there, grumbling to himself, praying no one heard him. But outside, there's just the regular hum of London's nightlife. He's safe for now. He straightens up, opens the door of the porta potty, and steps out. He has to crane his neck back to look up at the structure in front of him. He's at the base of a block of flats, or at least what would have been a block of flats. He'd asked the chicken shop owner from across the street about this place earlier in the day. The man told him it was supposed to be a new development to attract young 20-something professionals to the area, but midway through construction, the company shut down. Now the shell of the building stands empty, waiting to be knocked back down. With any luck, there might still be some building equipment around here that he can salvage, or maybe a bit of copper wiring he can sell. At the very least, it'll put a roof over his head for a few nights. He's even got a toilet. Kind of. He'll scope the place out and call his wife in a bit. After a long day working the market stalls, she deserves her night in the soup kitchen tonight. That place had stopped letting him in after the last fight. The pair of them aren't exactly homeless. They just don't have a home right now. The thief sidles into the building, peering around in the gloom. Exposed concrete and girders surround him in every direction. There aren't many walls in place yet, just floors and ceiling, broken up by staircases and supporting pillars. It'll be quite exposed down here. He needs to head up higher to see if there are any more secluded spots for the night. As he climbs up the stairs, the thief hears voices above him echoing through the empty shell of a building. He peeks over the top of the stairs. This floor's a bit more divided up. There are a few walls in place. He sees the light of what must be a fire dancing around the edge of one of them. That's where the voices are coming from. Security guards wouldn't light a fire. They must be homeless. Ugh, the thief hates homeless people. Being surrounded by them so much at the moment is just demeaning. They have no morals, no standards, they just lie and steal. He spies a couple of backpacks leaning against the wall. He'll have to be quiet, but with a bit of luck, he can sneak over and take one of those packs without any of them hearing. He creeps up to the top of the stairs, and a piece of metal glints at him in the dark. A sledgehammer, lying there on the ground. He tiptoes over to it and lifts it into his arms. It's heavy. If he can give it a good swing, it'll keep him safe for sure. He grins and makes his way towards the packs on the ground. He gently loops a hand under the shoulder strap. 3, 2, 1. Clatter! An empty can falls out of the side and bounces off the concrete floor. What was that? Oh no. The thief shoulders the pack and runs, but it's too late. A pair of hands grab him and spin him around. The thief staggers backward but stays on his feet. 3 figures surround him in the dark. He doesn't have a choice. He swings the sledgehammer wildly. It takes all of his strength just to lift it, but sure enough, he feels it connect. He swings it back the other way, hard as he can. His arms strain from the effort. A man yelps in the darkness. Something heavy thuds to the floor. For a moment, all 4 of them stand there in silence. The thief holds the sledgehammer at the ready. He isn't sure if he's got the strength to swing it again, even with all this adrenaline. But the other men aren't looking at him. The 2 on either side stare at the man in the middle. Or rather, what used to be the man in the middle. The man's friends bolt for the exit. They run off into the night without a look back. Neither will ever be able to explain what they saw tonight. It takes a long time for the thief's hands to warm up by the fire. They feel cold and don't stop trembling for a long time. So long that the sun is about to come up. There's something red on the thief's hands. He can just about make it out in the flickering light. Must be blood. He wipes it on the ground and reaches into his pocket, fishing out the little brick phone. He's only got 5% battery left and almost no minutes on the sim. No time to explain the details. He just calls his wife, gives her the location, and tells her to come quick. She'll need to jump from the overpass soon before there are too many commuters on the rails. He's moved the body, of course. He's sitting next to it right now, actually. Couldn't leave it out in the open for anyone to see. In this little nook with the fire, he's well hidden from the outside world. There's graffiti on the walls. This must be a popular spot. If anyone comes and disturbs him, he knows what he's doing with them. The sledgehammer leans against his leg. After about an hour, he hears footsteps on the concrete behind him. He whistles once. 2 whistles come back. His wife stops dead when she rounds the corner. He hadn't told her what had happened over the phone, just that he'd found them a new spot. She's staring at the body lying next to him. Rose petals and candles usually work better. He shrugs and looks back at the flames. Not his fault. Self-defense, as always. But she doesn't stop staring. It's starting to annoy him now. It's like she's never seen a body. What's wrong with her? Can't she? Then he hears it. Soft, rasping breathing. Very slowly, the thief turns his head. Lying there on the ground next to him, with half of his head caved in, the man is still alive, staring at them both through one horrified eye. The thief grasps the sledgehammer and stands up. That just makes no sense. His wife looks puzzled too. They look at the man lying on the ground in more detail. A chunk of his head is missing completely, but the wound underneath is healed over. The flesh and brain underneath looks like it's been cauterized, as if he'd been burned. And surely you can't still be alive with that big of a chunk of your brain missing. Strange, his wife mumbles. Her hand joins his on the hilt of the sledgehammer. She takes it from him and caves in the homeless man's head. In just a few swings, his head is a red, mushy pulp on the floor. Definitely dead now. They both stare at the body for a bit. No more breathing. Lovely. Problem solved. But the red mush doesn't look like blood. Incredulously, his wife extends a finger and dips it into the red mush on the homeless man's head. She raises it to her mouth and has a taste. Salsa. 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 He doesn't believe her. He leans down to take a nibble of the red mush on the ground. Sure enough, the cool taste of pico de gallo meets his tongue. It's not bad, you know. Ignoring the sweaty grime of the homeless man's flesh, it's actually pretty good. The thief looks over at his wife. She scoops 2 fingers through the goop and sticks it in her mouth. A grin spreads across her face, a glint lighting up her eye. He's been married to her long enough to know what this face means. She's got a plan. Finding the jars proves to be the biggest issue, or at least finding intact jars. Dumpster diving has never been the thief's favorite pastime. Feels a bit too homeless for him. But as he climbs out of his 12th bin of the day with nothing to show for his efforts but a measly little glass jar, he thinks he's had enough. He tosses a rotten potato at his wife. It splatters in her hair. It would probably stink anywhere, but amongst all this trash, the potato is probably the best smelling thing around. You throw one more bit of trash at me, and I'll be dipping tortillas in what's left of you, she says. The thief's had enough. He clambers out of the dumpster and storms over to his wife. This plan sucks. Why does he have to be the one covered in trash all the time? Why is he the one always breaking into construction sites? He raises a fist above his head, just as she spots the jar in his hand and squeals in excitement. She pecks him on the lips and excitedly tells him that they should have enough of them now to get started. Her lips taste of rotten potato. Back in the construction site, they get to work. Taking it in turns, they raise the sledgehammer above their heads and bring it down on the homeless man's body. With every hit, they expect the magic to stop working, but it doesn't. Dollops of salsa pool where bruises would normally form. While one of them pummels the corpse, the other scoops the salsa into jars, carefully screwing on the lid and writing little labels to go alongside. Artisanal pico de gallo, £3.50. Salsa made straight from the heart. It's not all made from a heart though, is it? The thief says. Only one jar will be. The rest will be made from the bowels and stuff. It's all connected, innit? You can taste some in a bit and tell me if any of it's different. He doesn't really fancy trying bowel salsa, but his wife makes him. She's the one holding the hammer. You know what? If he didn't know it was bowel salsa, he never would have guessed it. Tastes pretty much the same as all the rest. The pair of them managed to mash about half of the body into salsa that day. The remaining carcass lies on the concrete rather neatly. There's no blood or gore at all. If anything, this is a pretty sterile affair. Just salsa. What we calling our business then? The thief asks. How about Joe's? His wife rolls her eyes at him and thinks for a moment. El martillo y la pulpa. The thief doesn't know any Spanish, so he just laughs and pretends he gets the joke. At least, he hopes it was a joke. 2 days later, business is booming. From the first thing in the morning until late in the afternoon, the jars of salsa are selling like hotcakes. The two of them can hardly believe it. At lunchtime each day, the thief has to go back to the apartment and restock. Those are their code words for going back to the dilapidated apartment complex and pulverizing the corpse of a homeless man with a sledgehammer, just in case that wasn't clear. At £3.50 per jar, their handmade recipe is pulling in the big bucks. Who'd have guessed that the homeless could be so profitable? The market they're selling in apparently has a strong Mexican migrant community living nearby. On top of that, a handful of local moms started sharing photos of the artisan salsa from the local market, which surged the demand. It might even be time to start jacking up the prices. Only, they've got a problem. As the thief arrives at the market with a wheelbarrow full of freshly filled jars, he pulls his wife to one side to have a whispered conversation with her. They're almost out of stock. And of course, by the word stock, they really mean the cold, rotting dead body. His wife looks at him incredulously. Does he really not see the solution here? If you're running low on ingredients and your product is flying off the shelves, what do? You go out and source yourself some more damn ingredients. As the thief walks away with his wheelbarrow and sledgehammer, he wonders why it's always him doing the messy jobs. But try as he might, the thief can't find any targets. He walks around all of the streets near the block of flats, but has no luck. He approaches one sleeping homeless man and kicks him in the shoulder, trying to wake him. Bad idea. The man starts yelling loud enough to attract the attention of everyone on the street. No amount of begging or bargaining is going to get this man to move an inch. The thief gives it a go anyway and watches in shock as the man buries his teeth into his ankle. Limping back up the stairs into their nook in the construction site, the thief has a scowl on his face. After a couple of hours, his wife arrives and joins him at the fire. It's a good profit today, even better than the previous day. Keep this up, and they'll be rich in no time. He grins at his wife. She leers back, then shoves the money back into her pocket. Hang on a minute. That wasn't part of the deal. They're partners, 50-50. She bares her teeth at him and tells him she's just holding on to it for now. The sledgehammer sits halfway between them. The thief glances down at it. So does his wife. But that night, they are in luck. A drunk wanders into the construction site. He's so wasted that he doesn't have time to figure out that he's been pummeled to death by a hammer until he's just a generous splodge of salsa fresca slowly oozing across the concrete floor. The following night, another two men saunter in. Then the thief convinces an obnoxious local with a dog to follow him into the place the afternoon after that. The dog wasn't worth the effort. It ran around a lot before they caught it and only produced enough salsa for a medium-sized garden party. But the haul is good. All of a sudden, they are overrun with work. Jar after jar after jar. Everyone in the area keeps coming back for more, even telling their friends about it. This salsa is to die for. They have to know the recipe. Dead Londoners, drunks, dogs, that kind of thing. The crowd of moms aren't quite sure what the joke was, but try to laugh anyway. Everything is going perfectly. Except, of course, for the thief's ankle. The bite mark went purple, and now it's on its way to green. The veins on his foot and up his leg are starting to look like a funny color. He should really go to the hospital, but he reckons it'll be okay. Besides, they don't really like him at any of the hospitals around here. He's had one too many visits, and been the reason for one too many for several other men. But that night, it's clear that something's wrong. As he and his wife sit on the pile of corpses next to their fire, he feels a cold sweat on his brow. His wife counts all of the coins into neat piles. There's more in front of them than they've ever shared before, but his head is feeling swimmy. The thief lies down on the corpse bed. He's back to back with an investment banker who took the wrong alley home on his walk home from work. "No lying down yet. You need to cook up a new batch before bed." His wife is glaring at him. He refuses, says he's too tired tonight and his ankle hurts. She starts grumbling at him about not pulling his weight. A switch flips in his head. "I'll do more work when you give me what I'm owed. The money. I want my share now." His wife cackles and jumps to her feet. Fat chance. He's not seeing a penny until he actually starts to contribute. She's the one who came up with the idea. She's the one who sells dozens of jars a day. She's the one holding the sledgehammer right now. His eyes widen. "What are you doing with that? You say your ankle's sick? Well, I know something that could help you with that." Before his woozy mind can register what's happening, the sledgehammer arcs through the air towards him. That sobers him up. Lucky for him, he manages to roll out of the way at the last moment, causing the sledgehammer to embed himself in the ground next to him. That's it. It's time for a hostile divorce. He hauls himself to his feet and grasps the hammer, pulling it as hard as he can towards himself. The metal connects with his chest, and he feels the salsa running down his ribs. He shoves her back. The sledgehammer catches her shoulder and salsa-rises it. Tomato chunks fly across the room and sizzle in the fire. Back and forth, the hammer swings, hitting the thief, then his wife, then him again. On and on, until nothing is left but a sledgehammer and 2 large piles of salsa. Usually it's the smell that alerts people to a dead body, except for once, it was actually a pretty pleasant smell. Forensic police had to consciously stop themselves from having a taste. One of them even happened to have some tortillas in the car that day. By the time he returned to the station that evening, the packet was empty. He swears to this day that he ate them dry. It wasn't long before the story broke. Some in the local press theorized that this was a bizarre viral marketing campaign from Doritos. Once that theory was out there, it wasn't long before the story died. No one likes overly aggressive advertising. To this day, Scotland Yard hasn't got a clue what was going on at that crime scene. One senior investigating officer was unofficially quoted shaking his head and saying, "I don't know what the hell happened here. Sometimes it's best to just not ask questions." We all know it takes 2 to tango, but I bet you didn't know it takes a sledgehammer to salsa. That was my attempt to draw some kind of lesson from SCP-3794. You can probably guess the nickname of this SCP already: the Salsa Sledgehammer. Currently stored in a standard item locker, this SCP is considered to be totally safe in the right hands. You could use it to demolish walls, break apart cinder blocks, or win over your new mother-in-law with a fresh bowl of homemade nachos. Assuming, of course, that you have the necessary ingredients. That is because when SCP-3794 makes sufficiently heavy contact with living tissue, it immediately converts the point of impact and surrounding area into salsa. Affecting roughly 3 to 8 centimeters around the impact points, this salsa does not adhere to the rest of the body and will immediately slide out of its crater and fall to the ground. Peering at the hole left behind, you will see that the nerve endings, capillaries, and even main arteries will all be instantaneously sealed off. This sledgehammer would make for a very clean murder weapon, if it wasn't for the human-sized amount of salsa you get everywhere in the process. You would need to ensure you smashed up every part of the body, though, as any disconnected limbs or tissues still function and follow orders from the brain as if nothing is wrong, as our thief learned only too well. The salsa itself is good. Nothing incredible, but not that bad either. It just goes to show that if you stick an artisan label on anything, then people go crazy for it. Testing on this sledgehammer has been suspended. A test subject was chosen to lie with his head over a generously sized serving bowl. Researchers swung the hammer and demolished half of the test subject's skull and brain in just one hit. Much to their surprise, however, the subject continued to exhibit all signs of consciousness, moving frantically around the room and even writing the word "helped" in the spilled salsa. The subject died 30 minutes later, the moment that researchers taste tested the dip. Since then, the sledgehammer has remained in its locker, although there is often now an air of suspicion whenever a jar of salsa shows up in the fridge in the break room.
Everyone in this school knows to step aside when the goth girl is on the move. She strides down the school hallway, confident that no one will challenge her as the undisputed ruler of this high school. It's not just her dark wardrobe or her black nails and eyeliner that intimidate the other students. Her domineering attitude and sharp tongue make her feared. She brushes past a gaggle of underclassmen who wilt under her devastating gaze. "Beat it, dorks," she hisses, jerking her head to indicate that they should get out of her way. The other students disperse instantly, afraid to chance really getting an earful. Her terrible reputation means that no one ever makes trouble for the goth girl, but it's more than just her attitude that keeps her on top. It's also all those rumors around her. The rumors started last year, just after a new transfer student arrived in their school. She was a younger classman who shared the goth girl's same dark fashion sense and sensibilities. Students even saw the younger girl occasionally hanging out with the school's resident goth population. But it was no secret that the goth girl didn't like her. Maybe she felt like this younger girl was homing in on her territory, or even angling to take her place among the goth crew. Whatever the case, other students couldn't help but notice how the goth girl's lip quivered or her eyes flashed whenever the younger girl tried to worm her way into the goth gang's meetups. Then, one day, the younger girl didn't come home from school. The younger girl's parents reported her missing and organized a whole search party. The police spent weeks tracking down every lead, desperately looking for anything that might tell them what became of the missing girl, but found nothing. Rumors spread around school that the goth girl had something to do with it. After all, hadn't the younger girl been her biggest rival? Hadn't she always hated the younger girl? And if anyone at this school would have had the chutzpah to actually do something sinister, it would be her, right? Despite all the gossip, though, no evidence ever surfaced to link the goth girl to the disappearance. The police even interviewed her several times, but she always denied knowing anything. "Yeah, I didn't like that little brat," she said in the police interview. "She was always getting underfoot and thinking that she could hang with us. But that doesn't mean I did anything to her. I mean, it's not like I would have really wanted to hurt her." The goth girl concluded her statement with a knowing smirk, as if she was pleased with herself for getting away with murder. But you can't build a case out of a smirk, so even if the police suspected anything, they were forced to let her go. Eventually, life at school returned to normal. Other than a few fading missing child posters still fixed to telephone poles around town, most students eventually forgot about their missing classmate, but the goth girl's fearsome reputation persisted. Could she have actually had something to do with that younger girl's mysterious disappearance? Now that other students thought she might have actually killed someone, they naturally found her even more intimidating. The goth girl didn't mind, though. After all, she already thought most of the other students were normie losers anyway, so she liked that they gave her a wide berth. The goth girl walks toward the end of the hallway, pushing open a designated fire exit door and slipping out behind the school. Today, the other goths are hanging out behind the school building. They nod curtly as the goth girl joins them. "What's going on, losers?" she says, adopting an aura of bored detachment. "I was just telling them that there's this haunted game you can download," says the goth boy. "It's all messed up. Like, the game knows all your worst secrets, and the more you play, the more it taunts you. Then, when you finish, you just disappear." The other goths snicker at the story. None of them really believe it, but it makes for a fun, spooky tale to help set the atmosphere as the sun sets. But one girl is more skeptical than the rest, to the point that she's almost insulted by how obviously fake this story is. "What do you mean you just disappear?" asks the girl. The boy shrugs. "I don't know. I just know that no one ever sees them again." "I don't believe that at all," says the goth girl. "That sounds made up." No, says the boy. "It's 100% real. It's called the Book of Tamlin." "Okay, sure, whatever you say. And who exactly is Tamlin?" The boy shrugs. "I don't know. Clearly I haven't played it since I'm still here." The girl rolls her eyes. "That's ridiculous. I'll show you right now." She whips her cell phone out of her backpack and starts to thumb through the app store until she sees it. The Book of Tamlin. It's right there in the store. That just makes this whole story seem even sillier. She would expect that if there were a real haunted app. It would only be accessible via the dark web or maybe a strange glitch that randomly installed it into doomed victims' phones. But it's right here for anyone to download. With a skeptical smirk on her face, she punches the button to begin the installation. "It's right here in the app store," says the goth girl. "Any of you chickens gonna play?" The other goths eye each other nervously. Sure, they were all pretty quick to dismiss the ominous story about this weird game before. But now that their friend is challenging them to actually play it, they don't feel quite so confident. The goth girl snorts derisively. She wonders why she bothers hanging out with these posers. They're the closest thing that she has to friends, since so few other students even dare approach her. But what does a bossy prima donna like her really need with friends anyway? She watches as the game loads up the intro screen, and then gameplay begins. She snorts again. The Book of Tamlin appears to be a hidden object game, where the point is to discover various objects hidden in a larger image. This is baby stuff, thinks the goth girl. Find the 10 black cats in the cemetery, instructs the game as it pulls up a cartoony image of a graveyard. The goth girl's finger hovers over the screen, and she quickly taps it whenever she spots a black cat crouching behind one of the pixelated tombstones. Is this supposed to be scary? The screen fades, and an empty room with a pair of doors fades in. The goth girl intuits that she's supposed to pick one to advance to the next screen. Rolling her eyes, she selects the door on the left. The next scene looks familiar. Too familiar. It's a bedroom. Her bedroom, in fact. She recognizes the dark decor and the black clothing thrown on the floor. She narrows her eyes suspiciously. Surely that's just a crazy coincidence, right? She eyes the other goths, but they don't give any indication that they were expecting this twist. Are they playing a trick on her? Find the outfits that make your parents ashamed to be seen with you, says the instructions. She grits her teeth. What's the deal with this stupid program insulting her? She knows that her parents don't exactly approve of her fashion choices, but this stupid game can't know that. It's probably just guessing that any young person who plays a game will probably have had quarrels with their parents about the way they dress. That's pretty normal, right? Again, the empty room with the 2 doors appears. This time, the goth girl chooses the one on the right. The next screen after that is a picture of a pretty garden, and the instructions say to pick out 10 pretty flowers. The next is a barnyard with instructions to find 5 cows. The goth girl starts to relax. That weird screen with her room must have just been a fluke. Otherwise, this game seems pretty mundane. But the next screen makes the goth girl's face go as white as a sheet. Her eyes bug out of her head, and sweat starts to bead on her forehead. No way. There's no way that this next screen could be real. The image that appears is familiar to her. It's a real-life place. She knows, because she's been there. It's an image of a particular ravine deep in the local woods. People sometimes throw old garbage down there, so it's full of old washing machines and wrecked cars. Years ago, an old oak tree fell across the chasm, and now the dead log functions as a makeshift bridge. Sometimes kids dare one another to cross it. The instructions read, "Find the girl who wanted to be a part of your club." The goth girl doesn't need to search the image to know what she'll find. She knows, deep in her heart, that the hidden object that she's being instructed to find will be a broken body lying at the bottom of the ditch, half hidden under old blankets and debris. How could this game know? She was so careful. She remembers last school year when that younger girl kept trying to usurp her place in her clique. It made her so mad. But that younger girl seemed to look up to her, to think of her as the leader of the group, and the one who she needed to impress in order to be accepted. That was good. The goth girl knew she could use that to her advantage. She told the younger girl to meet her in the woods by the old ravine late at night. Of course, it was nothing sinister. It was just for a little initiation test to prove that the younger girl could take her place as part of their gang. The younger girl was only too excited for her test. The goth girl was waiting at the ravine when her younger rival finally arrived. "I came as fast as I could," said the younger girl. "What do you need me to do?" "Listen, I see how you want to hang out with us," said the goth girl. "But you have to prove yourself if you want to be part of our group. But you have to understand, us goths, we embrace the darkness. We're not scared of the void. We only take the coolest and the bravest, the kids who aren't afraid of death. So you have to show me that you're willing to look eternity in the eye. All you have to do to join us is to cross this ravine over that log over there." She pointed at the fallen log. The younger girl looked frightened, but she nodded. The goth girl half expected her to turn tail and run home, but she was surprised to see her rival make her way toward the log. Maybe she wasn't as much of a poser as the goth girl thought. The goth girl didn't mean for anything bad to happen. She really only wanted to scare the younger girl. Maybe she could freak her out enough that she wouldn't want to hang out with them anymore, and then she wouldn't have to deal with that little pest anymore. The younger girl clambers up atop the log and slowly starts walking across the deep gorge, carefully placing one foot in front of the other. But the peeling bark of the old log is more slippery than it looks, and it's hard to keep her footing in the dark. The younger girl makes it almost halfway across the ravine before she loses her footing. With a yelp, she lurches to the side and falls down the slope, tumbling head over heels and landing amongst the garbage with a sickening crunch. The goth girl screamed in shock. She stared down in the ravine, seeing the younger girl lying still at the bottom, her neck bent at an impossible angle. It was obvious that the fall had killed her instantly. The goth girl knew she was in trouble. Or was she? Nobody knew she was out here. Nobody knew that she'd asked the younger girl to meet her here. All she had to do was keep her mouth shut, and nobody could pin this on her. The plan worked. She worked out her alibi and stuck to it during all the police interviews, never deviating, practicing her story until it sounded natural. The cops fell for it, clearing her as a suspect before moving on in their investigation. For a whole year, she had carried this terrible secret. Of course, it got easier over time. She gradually convinced herself that the whole thing was a terrible accident. It couldn't have been prevented. She had nothing to feel guilty about. And yet, somehow, this game knew. This game knew exactly what she had done. The phone slips from her palsied fingers and drops to the ground. The other Goths look at her in confusion. They've never seen their leader in such a state of terror. What could have spooked her so bad? "Which of you made this dumb game?" she snaps. "It must have been one of you. Fess up." "We don't know what you're talking about," says the Goth boy. "I already told you, it's supposed to be haunted and—" "I don't know what you think you know, but you don't know anything," shouts the Goth girl, hysterical in her fear. Has she been found out? Was this entire game just an elaborate ruse to trick her into confessing her guilt? Well, she's not going to fall for it. She's still the queen boss of this school, and if any of these losers think that they can knock her off her perch with a silly game, they're dead wrong. "What do you mean, we don't know anything?" the other Goths are murmuring amongst themselves. Of course, they'd heard the rumors about their leader as well, but they never really gave them much credence. She may be a little sharp, but that doesn't make her capable of murder. But the way that this game had freaked her out so much is really beginning to make them wonder. The Goth girl is frantic now, seeing her control slip away as the other kids begin to mull the possibilities. She can't believe this. She wonders desperately if someone was there that night to see the whole terrible accident play out. Or maybe she let something slip without knowing. What other explanation could there possibly be? "I'm out of here. Leave me alone. Don't follow me," she yells as she stomps away. The other Goths don't make any move to follow, intimidated by the wrath of their leader. But when the Goth girl throws open the door to head back inside the school, she's confronted with an unexpected sight. Instead of the long gray hallway lined with lockers that she expected, she instead sees a single empty room. It couldn't be, but it looks exactly like the empty room from the game, the one that she glimpsed between levels. "This isn't supposed to be here," she cries. Behind her, the other Goths stare in confusion. They too recognize the room from the game, but they can't figure out for the life of them how it's managed to appear in real life. What's going on? Is her guilty mind playing tricks on her? No, that can't be. The reaction of the other Goths shows that they see it too. She doesn't think she can trust her senses, but she also feels an overwhelming urge to step into that empty room. "Don't go in," calls the Goth boy, but it's too late. Internally, her rational mind is screaming at her to stay out, but she can't control her feet. She steps inside, and the door swings closed behind her. The Goth boy runs to the door and yanks it open, hoping to help his terrified friend. But beyond the door, he sees nothing but the ordinary hallway that's always been there. The mysterious empty room is nowhere to be seen, and the Goth girl has completely vanished with it. Not many people would say that SCP-1590, better known as the Book of Tamlin, is any fun. SCP-1590 is a downloadable app that has been designated as Euclid, and 7 copies of the game are currently held by the Foundation in a containment locker for experimentation purposes. Whenever the Foundation discovers new instances of SCP-1590, information technicians initiate an immediate DDoS attack on the hosting server, and an MTF is to be sent in to appropriate all hardware. Any systems that were able to download copies of the game before the DDoS attack should be infected with the COM-AMA computer virus to prevent unwitting innocents from playing the game. SCP-1590 is a 1 kilobyte program or application designed for use with touchscreen hardware such as tablets. Attempts to view SCP-1590's coding reveal only the numbers 1 through 66,666 in numerical order, but on the front end, SCP-1590 plays as a mostly ordinary video game in the hidden object puzzle genre. Like other hidden object puzzle games, the player is given a list of objects that they must find in a scene within an allotted amount of time. What makes SCP-1590 unusual, though, is that as the game progresses, the scenes and hidden objects become more personal to the player, often referencing traumatic or unsettling events from the player's life. It is not known how SCP-1590 is able to gain such intimate knowledge of a player, but since some players report that SCP-1590 seems privy to personal secrets that have never been revealed to another person, it is unlikely that it's just due to very good research on the part of the game's designers. The game always begins with the same dedication screen, containing the message, "To Joey, who taught me how to be cool." The dedication continues, listing another name who almost made it out. The second name changes with every playthrough, but it is always the name of the previous person to play the game. The dedication screen is followed by an animated cutscene with a humanoid silhouette standing on the deck of what appears to be an oil tanker. The screen turns bright white, then returns to the oil tanker. A yellow wall, larger than the ship, has been added to the scene. The wall's appearance causes a wave to crash over the ship, waving the humanoid overboard. The screen fills with bubbles, and the words, "The Book of Tamlin" and "Start Game" appear overhead on the bubbles. The significance of this animated sequence, as well as the title, "The Book of Tamlin," if any, is currently unknown. When a player chooses Start Game, the title screen fades into an image of a cluttered room. The user is presented with a series of tasks, directing them to find objects hidden in the room image. The allotted time to find every object in a scene ranges from 1 to 12 minutes. Once the user finds every object in a scene, a set of doors appear on screen, and the player must choose one to progress in the game. The game continues through a random number of screens, labeled from 7 to 43. Eventually, if the user fails to find all objects in a scene within the time limit, the next scene will be an empty room. The words, "You've found out everything there is to find about the house. Now all you have left to find is the way out," appear on the screen. At this point, the game ends and cannot be replayed by the same user. The actual length of the game appears to vary from player to player, but even players who appear to win the game, always finding all hidden objects within the time limit, will eventually be shown the same end screen and receive the same message. As strange as the game is, what happens next is even stranger. Within 72 hours of completing the game, whether a player has ostensibly won or lost, the player will encounter the final room from the game in real life. They will find that some ordinary door, possibly in their home or workplace, no longer leads to the room it should lead to, but instead leads to the empty room from the end of the game. If someone other than the player attempts to pass through the door, they will find themselves not in the empty room from the game, but instead in the room that the door normally leads to. If the player passes through the door, though, they disappear into the empty room. Any tracking devices cease to transmit after the user passes through the doorway. The Foundation currently has no idea who or what is behind SCP-1590, or how the game manages to access users' memories. It's also not clear what purpose the game solves, whether it's intended as a therapy device to help subjects work through hidden trauma, or as an instrument of justice to punish wrongdoing. Either way, you might want to make sure you have a clean conscience before you download any new mysterious games for your phone. You never know when you might find yourself confronting the Book of Tamlin.
It's the last day of 6th grade, and there are only seconds left before the final bell rings and school is officially out for summer. An excitable 11-year-old girl sits at her desk, bouncing her leg in anticipation and watching the clock. Soon, she'll have 3 glorious months of freedom. But more importantly, she can take her mom up on a life-changing promise. They made a deal when they moved to this new town. If she could get through 6th grade with straight A's and good feedback from her teachers, she could finally get a pet of her own. There were some stipulations, of course. The pet can't be too big, can't make a lot of noise, and needs to be something she can take care of by herself. It was hard work, but she buckled down, studied hard, and even found a math tutor. The time is now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The last bell of the year rings, and the class erupts into cheers. Summer's here. She shoves her books into her bag and runs out the door so quickly, she barely catches her teacher's parting words of, "Have a great summer vacation, everyone." The halls are swamped with kids all rushing toward the buses, their parents' cars, or their final walk home of the school year. She's right there with them, the promise of the day putting an extra spring in her step. Many of the faces in the hall are still unfamiliar. After a year of being the new kid in town, she hasn't made many friends, but none of that matters now. She's going to get a special friend today, something all her own that she can nurture, play with, and won't ever have to worry about impressing. It's only a short walk to the pet store, and then an even shorter walk to her house. As she makes her way down the sidewalk, the sun beaming down on her smiling face, the girl lets her mind wander. What kind of pet should she get? A dog needs to be walked. That might be too much work. A fish? Maybe, but you can't play with a fish. You can't pet a fish, or at least it won't be happy if you try. She remembers a pet tarantula her eccentric aunt once had and shudders. No spiders, definitely not. She wants something friendly, something small enough that her mom won't complain, but something she can cuddle and really bond with.
Whatever it ends up being, she's going to take great care of it. The walk feels much longer than it is, the anticipation stretching the minutes until they feel like hours. She spots the sign in the shape of a dog playing with a ball, and her heart skips a beat. She's reached the pet store. Inside, there are an overwhelming number of options. She walks through the reptile section, pressing her face to the class of tanks housing iguanas, slithery snakes, tiny darting lizards with brightly colored tails. Nearby, there are fat green tree frogs and bumpy toads with huge watery eyes. She briefly pauses at the fish, enticed by their vivid colors and the staggering variety of shapes and sizes. But a fish is such a boring pet, she thinks. What can you even do with a fish? She moves on, looking at a litter of fluffy tabby kittens. They romp and roll around on top of each other, flicking their tails and stretching their soft paws. They're adorable, and her heart melts. But then she thinks about having to scoop a litter box and decides to move on. There are roly-poly hamsters and sleek-looking rats, tiny white mice with pink eyes and gerbils running on wheels. Suddenly, a sign catches her eye. Exotic pets, it reads. What could be over there? She tiptoes into the section, almost feeling like she's stumbled into somewhere she shouldn't be. There are ferrets wiggling around and playing with a ball, fluffy chinchillas that look impossibly plush and soft to the touch, little sugar gliders peeking out of cloth pouches with wide eyes. There's even a skunk, blinking at her curiosity. But nothing feels quite right. None of these pets seem like the one she has to bring home. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she spots something curious. A row of small cardboard packages covered with inviting cartoonish text, advertising something called a custom pet. She picks up one of the packages and reads the description. It sounds impossible, too good to be true. Just buy these packaged eggs, place them anywhere in your house, and a perfectly matched pet will hatch and fit right in. It will become exactly the kind of pet that you need. She looks for any sort of fine print, something that might indicate this is a toy or some kind of joke, but it looks real. Could it be? Shyly, the girl takes one of the packages up to the cash register. The employee goes to scan it, but there's no barcode. "Did you bring this in with you?" the cashier asks. She shakes her head. "Okay, well, we don't sell these, so I guess you can just take it?" The girl's eyes go wide. Really? She can just have it for free? The cashier is already waving her off, beckoning the next customer to come check out. Not wanting to question her good luck, she takes off without a second thought. The run home from the pet store is a total blur of excitement. All she wants to do is get inside, make a peanut butter sandwich, and figure out where to put her new pet's egg before her mom gets home from work. Not that she's doing anything wrong. It's just easier if she takes care of things before her mom can ask too many questions. She's doing them both a favor, really, taking care of all the logistics so her mom doesn't have to worry about it. She pulls her house key from her pocket and unlocks the door with shaking hands. It's almost time. Forget the sandwich. The sandwich can wait. She needs to get upstairs to her room right now and start her life with her new pet, whatever it ends up being. She throws her backpack on her bed and sits down on the floor, tearing open the cardboard packaging. Inside, there are 6 tiny eggs sealed in plastic. She just wants one pet, so she'll start with one egg for now. Of course, if the pet ends up being lonely, maybe it'll want a friend? She shakes off the thought. She can figure all of those details out later. She's just about to puncture the plastic so the egg can breathe when she stops. Where should she put it? She was so excited to leave the store she forgot to pick up a tank or terrarium or somewhere a traditional pet would live. The packaging says these pets can live anywhere, but do they really mean anywhere? If she does something wrong and her new pet is hurt or doesn't hatch at all, it'll just break her heart. Then she spots a potential solution. An old dollhouse, frilly and pastel pink and surprisingly spacious inside, sits next to her bed. She hasn't played with dolls in a while, insisting she was too old for them when she started 6th grade. But now, she's thrilled that she didn't get rid of her dollhouse just yet. Even if the dolls don't live there anymore, maybe now it can be a home for something new, for whatever hatches out of this strange little egg. Carefully, she breaks the plastic seal on the egg and places it inside the dollhouse. All of the doll furniture and little plastic choking hazards are gone, leaving only a pretty pink Victorian-style enclosure where the egg can safely hatch. Now, all she has to do is wait. Later that night, the girl wakes from a deep sleep to the sound of something moving inside the dollhouse, the skitter of tiny legs, the rustling of something inside the formerly vacant dollhouse. She sits up and is about to go peek inside when a chill of fear runs down her spine. What if it's something horrible? She doesn't know what kind of eggs those were. She'd never seen anything like them before. What if it's a spider or a worm or some other awful, monstrous thing she can't even imagine? And she brought it into her home, to where she and her mom sleep without even questioning it. She sits for a moment, the only sound the rustling of the thing in the dollhouse and her own short, panicked breaths. Then there's another sound, light and sweet, like a little bird chirping. It's coming from the dollhouse. Curiosity finally gets the better of her, and she opens the dollhouse, lifting the roof off. Inside, she spots it. Her new pet. Feathery soft fur, pastel pink and white, covers the little animal, which is currently exploring its new home delightedly. It flicks around a poofy little tail that looks a bit like a lavender feather duster and stops to blink up at her with two large, friendly purple eyes. Slowly, she reaches a hand down to pet the animal, and it nuzzles into her palm, body vibrating with something like a kitten's purr. Any tension she felt before melts out of her body as she realizes the packaging was not lying. She put the pet in an environment that was comforting, sweet, happy, a piece of childlike joy, and it had become the living embodiment of those things. For a brief moment, she wonders how she'll explain this new addition to the household, what she'll need to feed it, and what her mom will say. But then her new best friend chirps happily again, and all she can think is, this is going to be an amazing summer. Things worked out very well for the girl. Meanwhile, other families across town were screaming in horror as a tiny fire-breathing creature set their drapes ablaze, and another slowly dropped down from the ceiling on a silvery thread, blending into the shadows. This girl was not the only child to bring home one of these miraculous pets and hatch it in her home, and other children were much less careful about where they put the eggs. Of course, the children weren't to blame here. The blame lay with whoever was behind the design and widespread release of these odd little animals, also known as SCP-1550. SCP-1550 is a species of artificially synthesized creatures of unknown classification who are highly adaptable to any given environment. Their larvae will develop, grow, and change to fit whatever setting their eggs are placed in. Though adult specimens vary greatly in appearance, they all have markings on their underbelly that read, a Dr. Wondertainment trademark. Because of their highly adaptable nature, it is uncertain exactly what the original form of these creatures might look like. SCP-1550 eggs are 1 centimeter long, beige in color, and stored in airtight plastic packaging that prevents them from hatching until they are exposed to the outside air. The SCP Foundation first discovered SCP-1550 after a collection of bizarre cardboard packages were found in the exotic pets section of a pet store. None of the workers had ever seen these packages before and had never even heard of SCP-1550 prior to being asked about it. The packages were brought into containment immediately and were found to each contain 6 SCP-1550 eggs in airtight containers. The original packaging also contained an instruction leaflet, which I've managed to get my hands on a copy of. It reads, "Hey kids, your parents aren't letting you get a dog or cat? Don't fret, buy a Dr. Wondertainment custom pet. A Dr. Wondertainment's custom pet is far superior to an ordinary and boring cat or dog due to their original Adapto Eggs packaging, a Dr. Wondertainment invention. Just leave your custom pet Adapto Eggs around the house, and when they hatch, they'll fit right in. Perfect for apartments. To get your very own custom pets is easy, kids. Just put an egg in your house and break the plastic seal to give your new pet some air so it can hatch. Your new pet will be perfect for where you live, wherever you live. If your new custom pet seems lonely, just add another Adapto Egg and get him a new friend. Dr. Wondertainment is not responsible for injuries or death caused by this or any other product. Wondertainment custom pets are shipped out prefixed." Who exactly is this Dr. Wondertainment? A person? A corporation? A highly intelligent octopus with a penchant for toy design? The identity of the force behind the trademark is undetermined, but whatever Dr. Wondertainment is, one thing is certain. The toys they create are highly unusual. Dozens of Wondertainment's creations have been contained by the SCP Foundation, including SCP-2855, SCP-2396, and SCP-111. They range from useful to whimsical to downright destructive, and the motives behind each invention are currently unknown. SCP-1550 is just one in a long line of anomalous toys from the shadowy toymaker. And so, like they have with so many other Wondertainment products, the research staff at the Foundation decided to perform some exploratory tests on these supposed custom pets. First, one SCP-1550 egg was placed in a tank of seawater and left to hatch. When it did, it produced a specimen with gills all along its upper back, behind its eyes, an array of flat and broad tails it could use to swim efficiently. Further examination of the creature revealed that it excreted special mucus to protect its eyes from the salt water, and a swim bladder that was discovered during dissection. The skin of the creature was a mottled blue, giving it natural camouflage in its seawater environment. Next, the team decided to place an egg in fresh water and see what different adaptations were produced. A tank was filled with water from a river behind the testing site, and the egg was placed inside until it hatched. Interestingly, this specimen of SCP-1550 did not possess any gills, suggesting similar circumstances would not necessarily produce the same adaptations. Instead, this specimen had enlarged lungs and a thin, streamlined body for more efficient movement. Next, the team prepared a terrarium meant to simulate the ecosystem of a temperate forest and placed the next egg inside. When it hatched, it produced a specimen of SCP-1550 covered in a layer of brown fur, with a ridged underbelly resembling that of a snake. It also had a tail consisting of large tentacles. Along the ridged underbelly, there was a smooth patch of skin with the Dr. Wondertainment logo printed, like a tattoo. The team prepared a different terrarium that simulated a desert ecosystem and allowed an egg to hatch inside. The resulting specimen was cold-blooded, tan in color to blend in with the sand, and skilled at burrowing quickly to protect itself from outside stressors. It was also, notably, 1 centimeter larger than the previous specimens. The final terrarium was made to simulate the environment of an average urban apartment. The egg that hatched inside produced a creature with leathery skin and eyes placed similarly to those of a chameleon. The demeanor of the specimen was noticeably friendlier than its predecessors, and it acted more like a domesticated house pet than a wild animal. Its most impressive adaptation was its method of eating. Behind the specimen's jaw, there were strands of baleen like those found in whales, which allowed the creature to filter feed on dust and crumbs from the terrarium floor. After these experiments proved successful, the research team decided to test the eggs in more extreme environments. One egg was placed in a vat of molten iron. It promptly burst into flames and was completely destroyed. The head researcher responded, "Well, what did you expect to happen?" Which seems like a fair point. The next egg was placed inside a vacuum chamber, which was then depressurized. The egg promptly exploded, covering the inside of the chamber in an unidentifiable slime. These 2 less than successful experiments led the research team to the conclusion that SCP-1550 eggs cannot survive in conditions that would be uninhabitable for any other animal. There are limits to the creature's adaptability, but what would happen to an egg placed in a hostile environment filled with something recognizable? A vacuum chamber was filled with seawater, and an egg was placed inside. The chamber was then pressurized to 15,750 psi. This time, the egg was not destroyed, but instead was able to successfully hatch. The resulting SCP-1550 specimen bore a heavy resemblance to several deep-sea creatures, most notably the anglerfish. Like the anglerfish, the creature had a bioluminescent lure dangling from its forehead. It also had gills, dark gray-blue skin, flat and webbed fins, and enlarged eyes twice the size of those found on other specimens. Its teeth were sharp and ridged, similar to those of a shark. The head researcher made a note on this portion of the experiment log, asking, "Just what kind of child Dr. Wondertainment is trying to sell these things to that they could live in conditions where a creature like that could be kept as a pet?" All adult specimens of SCP-1550 are kept in a sealed 5 meter by 5 meter terrarium, which simulates desert conditions. This terrarium is monitored via electronic surveillance, and each of the specimens is implanted with a tracking device. If one or more of the specimens escapes, the area is locked down until all of the creatures have been captured and placed back in their terrarium. All SCP-1550 eggs are kept in their packaging unless being used for testing. As the Foundation does not want the population of adult specimens to exceed 20 at any given time, excess specimens are terminated. Honestly, that makes me a little sad. I'd be happy to take them in if the research team can't keep them. But I digress. Having a pet is a big responsibility, and some people just can't handle the risks and rewards that come with caring for an animal, especially one that can become an accidental weapon if you're not careful. If your child is begging you for a pet, maybe you should start them out with a goldfish first. A goldfish never burnt the house down, though I suppose there's a first time for everything.
The boatman's yells echo through the swamp, his cries of, "Rodney!" passing through the quagmire around him. His friend's name is met by the squawks of birds, flapping their wings in fright at the repeated shouts, then silence as they fly away. No response, no luck, and still no Rodney. It's been around a month since he vanished, and everyone else has since given up the search. Even the cops tell the boatman that his friend likely stumbled and fell into the murky waters of the swamp, drowning beneath the muddy depths. The crueler folk decide to taunt the boatman for being superstitious, telling him that perhaps Rodney was taken by the vengeful spirit of the swamp and consumed. But nothing deters the boatman from continuing the search, hopping in his dinghy and scouring the swamp, determined to not stop until he's covered every rancid inch of it. The boat drifts towards a large pipe, an old sewer opening that flushes waste out into the swamp. The smell is foul, even beneath the scarf covering the boatman's mouth and nose, protection that he's grateful for. Without it, this place would smell 1,000,000 times worse. Passing the pipe, he sweeps the beam of his flashlight down it, yelling out for Rodney again. His voice reverberates down the old metal tube, then dies down to a faint echo again. There's no reply. But just as he's about to continue his search, he spots something. Out of the corner of his eye, he's sure he notices something move. Anyone else would think nothing of it, just a rat or another local critter that's made its home in the filthy pipe. But the boatman has been searching the swamp for weeks. What if Rodney was injured and hid from the elements in the only shelter for miles around? Taking a deep, cloth-covered breath, the boatman takes a big step off his dinghy and heads into the sewer. Discolored water laden with goodness knows what trickles past his boots as he traverses the cramped passageway, heading deeper, guided by his flashlight. He yells Rodney's name again, if only to alleviate the silence inside the sewer and to distract from the anxiety that he might come across a gator somewhere down here. He tells himself that sewer gators are just an urban legend, until he spots what looks like scaled skin. Under the flashlight's beam, he takes a closer look. Reptiles shed their skin all the time, he thinks, but something's wrong here. This hasn't been shed. It's almost like it was torn. What could have ripped up a gator's hide? The sound of something shuffling towards him causes him to turn with a sudden start. His heart lurches in his chest. There's a figure standing in the path of his flashlight, disheveled, staggering like a zombie. But it's clearly Rodney. The boatman feels a wave of relief and calls out to his friend one more time, then watches as Rodney bursts. The boatman's stunned silence quickly becomes a pained scream of terror, one that causes him to drop his flashlight. As it rolls along the sewer pipe, it illuminates the thing crawling out from what little is left of Rodney. Numerous things. The same things that are lining the ceiling of the pipe, bristling, waiting. Collectively, they detect the presence of a new animal nearby, a new host. In accordance with SCP Foundation containment procedures, the organism designated as SCP-751 is to be kept in a hermetically sealed container. Within this 1 cubic meter space, humidity levels are kept at a high enough level for the organism to survive, and nutrients to feed SCP-751 are injected into the container on a daily basis. However, should a containment breach occur, then this parasitic life form will be compelled to seek out a more substantial food source. Hence its colloquial nickname among Foundation staff, the Organ Eater. As the nickname suggests, when left unchecked, SCP-751's primary diet consists of internal organs, with no differentiating between those of animals and those of humans. In its natural state, SCP-751 has a body mass of only around 2 kilograms, with no clearly defined shape. That is, before it infests a host. This anomalous parasite's amorphous body consists of an unknown substance with the same consistency as gelatin, pale white in coloration, with red veins streaking across the majority of its surface area. Upon closer examination by Foundation researchers and experts in parasitic lifeforms, it has been discovered that SCP-751's veins do, in fact, contain blood. Except, it's human blood, and seemingly stolen at that. This blood has been analyzed and was discovered to be a mixture of blood gathered from previous hosts to the parasite, which has been laced with various additional chemicals. While a full chemical composition of SCP-751 has been compiled by Foundation researchers and recorded in Document 751-C, the majority of additional substances present within the parasite are similar in nature and function to numerous anesthetics and immunosuppressants. In layman's terms, the organism possesses its own internal chemicals that can numb sensations, particularly pain, or induce sleep, similar to the drugs applied to patients undergoing surgery or other invasive medical procedures, as well as other chemicals that can inhibit a creature's or person's immune system. This is responsible for combating foreign objects present within an organism, particularly on a cellular level, wherein antibodies attack unidentified cells that could be the result of an infection. In medicine, immunosuppressant drugs are often administered in humans in order to prevent a person's body from rejecting an organ transplanted into their body from somebody else, like a kidney, liver, or even a heart. SCP-751's exact origin remains unknown to the Foundation. Specimens of the parasite have been discovered dwelling in damp environments, particularly those with close proximity to fresh water, naturally occurring bodies of water that contain lower concentrations of salt. Other areas in which the Foundation has encountered SCP-751 occurring have included swamps, rainforests, and sewers, with the organism requiring access to water in order to survive. Without exposure to water, the parasite will succumb to dehydration and ultimately die within a maximum of 12 hours. All of these elements seem to suggest to some Foundation researchers that SCP-751 is a naturally occurring organism and that it must have evolved to function in the way that it does. Theories range from the mildly plausible to the outright bizarre. One researcher has posited the idea that SCP-751 is an evolutionary descendant of some previously undocumented prehistoric bacterial life form, or even a genetic offshoot of an existing strain of rare but deadly flesh-eating bacteria. This possible explanation for SCP-751's origin was refuted by another researcher who conducted an hour and 35-minute presentation, with an intermission for snacks, that provided a different explanation. According to this second researcher, SCP-751 is an amoeba-like organism that originated from outer space, evolving as bacteria on a meteorite that then collided with a military satellite, altering its trajectory and causing both the meteorite and the satellite to crash land on Earth in the proximity of Arborville, California in 1988. It is worth noting that during this presentation, another member of staff stood up and began berating the presenting researcher, instead presenting a third, unfounded theory, that SCP-751 was actually the result of a military experiment to develop a biological weapon during the Cold War. The presenting researcher retorted by claiming he was getting to that part and scolded his heckler for disrupting the flow of his theory. The pair's argument then escalated into a full-blown fistfight, with senior research personnel being forced to intervene and security teams eventually breaking up the altercation. The Foundation's Human Resources Department has since placed both arguing staff members on temporary sabbatical and warned them against watching too many movies instead of conducting actual research into anomalies. However, the notion that SCP-751 is a naturally occurring parasitic life form is seemingly undermined by the chemicals that have been discovered within specimens. The fact is that it seems to be able to produce anesthetics and immunosuppressants that are much more akin to man-made drugs than any naturally occurring compounds with these properties. Any creature capable of producing these man-made substances is unlikely to have evolved naturally. Speculation has recently begun spreading among Foundation researchers that SCP-751 could, in fact, have been genetically engineered, possibly even through some unknown anomalous means. Whether or not there is any legitimacy to this idea is still unknown, and Foundation investigations into the matter are still yet to yield any definitive, conclusive evidence. As for who exactly is responsible for creating an anomalous parasitic life form, and to what end, these are questions that currently remain unanswered. The Foundation is looking into several potential groups of interest it considers to be the culprits for creating SCP-751, however, determining exactly who possesses the knowledge of genetics and bioengineering it would require to develop a parasite like this. In terms of why, the theory about SCP-751 intended to be deployed as a biological weapon seems to be plausible, given how it behaves, especially when interacting with human biology. In terms of behavior, particularly motor function, SCP-751 displays clear movement ability despite not possessing any limbs, bones, or muscle tissue. Provided it is able to maintain an adequate amount of exposure to water, a specimen of SCP-751 will move independently across terrains, including through sewer pipes and along water lines, as they seek out a host. However, there are a few notable exceptions. These parasites are unable to traverse drier, sandy areas and cannot survive in bodies of salt water for extended periods of time. Through observation and examination of their behavior patterns, Foundation researchers have determined that SCP-751 parasites likely possess an olfactory sense of some description. Even if they don't have any actual sensory organs, it seems that they can detect carbon dioxide and octanol, which are both commonly found in human breath and sweat. This is seemingly how SCP-751 specimens hunt down potential mammalian hosts. Upon tracking down a suitable host, an SCP-751 parasite will wait until the animal or person has fallen asleep, possibly by sensing that its target's respiration is slowing down, as during sleep, animals release lower levels of CO2 when exhaling. By this point, an SCP-751 specimen will have had to travel a considerable distance from its water-rich habitat, and this compels them to begin their feeding process. This begins when the amorphous anomalous organism slithers on top of a target, settling over its stomach region. Given that they possess little in the way of any protective barrier surrounding their gelatin-like bodies, this enables SCP-751 to effectively trick their hosts' bodies, allowing them to be absorbed into the target's skin through osmosis. Given that the skin effectively senses an SCP-751 as a harmless liquid, its naturally porous properties allow the parasites to enter their hosts undetected, at which point the anesthetics in their veins are dispersed. The numbing, sleep-inducing properties of these chemicals keep their hosts in a sedated state, preventing them from waking up during the initial absorption process. Once an SCP-751 parasite has successfully latched onto a host and has been absorbed into their body through the skin, what follows is a deeply unpleasant feeding process. One that is made all the more unnerving by the fact that victims of SCP-751 are rendered completely unaware of what is happening to them until it is too late. At present, there is no known way to either prevent or even slow down the parasite's feeding. Making its way inside its host, the organism will rest within its stomach, reshaping itself in such a way that it lines their gastrointestinal walls, the layers of specialized tissue that produce the enzymes and stomach acid necessary for digesting food. Having effectively blocked its target from digesting normally, an SCP-751 parasite will then alter itself in such a way that it mimics the composition and function of the host's stomach, allowing them to still safely eat and carry out the digestive process as normal, and enabling SCP-751 to reside inside their body without risking being detected. This adaptation normally takes between roughly 2 to 3 hours, which explains why the parasites target victims who are asleep, making them less likely to notice, thanks in part to the anesthetics. After their host has reawakened, there will be no evidence present that they have contracted an SCP-751 parasite, and as such, will continue their ordinary daily routine as if nothing has changed. Over the course of the next 3 to 4 days, an infected victim will continue to be unaware that their body is being used as a host by an SCP-751 specimen. Meanwhile, during this time frame, the parasite will have already begun feeding by digesting their victim's stomach. Keep in mind, while the gradual dissolving of a person's or animal's stomach would, under normal circumstances, trigger intense pain and possibly even send the victim into shock, SCP-751's unique physiology allows it to mimic the now missing stomach, while also preventing the pain of consuming its target's digestive system from being detected thanks to the anesthetics it naturally releases. Additionally, its immunosuppressant properties prevent the host's immune system from detecting a foreign presence within the body and creating antibodies to attack it. At most, subjects known to be carrying instances of SCP-751 display little in the way of symptoms beyond slight fatigue and numbness to sensation caused by the anesthetic present in their systems. After successfully digesting its host stomach and digestive system, SCP-751 begins to expand, absorbing these internal organs in order to increase its mass. Bear in mind, the average intestine alone can measure up to 15 feet, with an average stomach being around 12 inches long by 6 inches across at its widest point. With this additional mass, SCP-751 will then spread throughout the host's bodies, consuming more of their internal organs, adding to its own mass, and fueling further expansion. Generally starting with the stomach and intestines, the parasite then moves to the liver, then the kidneys, and gradually starts devouring the lungs after these. After each organ is successfully consumed, as it does with the stomach, SCP-751 alters parts of its growing mass in order to perfectly mimic the shape, composition, and function of each digested organ in turn. Through the continuous release of anesthetics to dull the pain of this internal organ consumption and the immunosuppressant chemicals that prevent it from being rejected by antibodies, SCP-751 is able to keep eating the organs of its victim. Eventually, the entirety of their internal bodily functions are carried out by SCP-751, mimicking the organs it has eaten, a process which normally takes approximately a whole month in human victims and slightly longer when SCP-751 targets larger animals. Upon the completion of this month-long feeding process, once all of a host's organs have been consumed by the parasite, an SCP-751 specimen will revert back to its original gelatinous composition, now much larger, thanks to the mass accumulated from feeding on its host's organs. Where feeding is slow and methodical, the reversion from mimicking entire organs back to an amorphous invertebrate is near instantaneous, occurring within a few minutes. Of course, you're most likely wondering what this means for the host, whose internal bodily functions have been maintained by SCP-751 imitating their organs up until now. The process of returning to its original composition considerably lowers the density of SCP-751's structure and causes it to swell. This occurs to such a degree that the host's body can no longer contain the creature inside it and forces their body to expand. In observations made by the SCP Foundation, this is the messiest part of an SCP-751 infection. The victim's skin stretches until its elasticity reaches its limit, bursting as it releases the grown and considerably larger SCP-751 parasite. There is little left of the host other than bones, torn, overstretched skin, and a lot of blood. The lingering question is, what is the point? What purpose does this insidious cycle of feeding on a host's organs and needlessly cruel expiration of their bodies serve? Well, as with many parasitic life forms, SCP-751's primary biological directive is to reproduce, and this occurs after bursting out of a depleted host's body. The excess mass of the parasite's body from consuming a victim's organs is bisected into between 10 and 20 smaller pieces. Each of these is a fully separate entity and is classified as a new specimen of SCP-751. The moment that this bisection occurs, these newly created parasites will be drawn towards damp areas and begin a slithering migration towards their new habitats. Once there, they grow through exposure to fresh water in preparation as they await new hosts to hunt, and thus, the cycle repeats itself. For a time, the SCP Foundation sought to find a practical medical application for SCP-751, and a request was made by a Foundation scientist to modify a specimen as part of an experiment. It was thought that if the parasite could be tricked into only mimicking the function and composition of a single organ in perpetuity without consuming any of the surrounding organs, then SCP-751 could serve as a potential solution to shortages in organ donors. This would have made them ideal for patients awaiting vital organ transplants, given the parasite's ability to recreate and carry out important bodily functions without the risk of being rejected. Receiving approval from the Foundation, the scientist attempts to make a number of alterations to the SCP-751 specimen, trying to find a way to inhibit its natural hunger and instinct to feed on organs. Isolating a specific function of its biology proves tricky, but the scientist believes he has found a way to biologically hack into the parasite through the aid of a specially developed cybernetic implant that he designed to suppress the SCP-751 specimen's appetite. The Foundation then authorizes the use of the augmented parasite specimen on a member of D-Class personnel, currently interred in Foundation medical care and being kept on life support thanks to having suffered multiple critical organ failures as the result of testing with another anomaly. As a first test goes, this is widely considered to be a trial by fire, one that won't turn out well. Initially, the modified SCP-751 specimen seems to behave as intended, restructuring itself into a new heart, lungs, and liver for the afflicted D-Class patient. The scientist monitors the growth of the parasite through the specialized implant, noting that it seems to just be assimilating and replacing the patient's damaged organs, not eating the few that are still functioning normally. The patient regains consciousness and is removed from life support. Within less than an hour, he's functioning normally. All seems to be going well, until an alarm sounds. The patient, having been returned to the rest of the general D-Class population, is observed suffering a sudden spike in adrenaline. Medical personnel are sent to assess him, while security staff keep other D-Classes from interfering. All present witness what follows. The augmented SCP-751 triggers the expansion that would normally occur after it had successfully eaten its host's organs. However, thanks to the augmentations the scientist has made to the parasite, it not only stays within the patient as his body begins splitting at the seams, but also retains control over the host body after his brain has shut down due to the shock and blood loss. What ensues is a containment breach, as security forces scramble to detain a hybrid creature, part human and part parasite. Any personnel unlucky enough to be close enough to the hybrid at the moment of transformation are caught by tendrils through which the SCP-751 parasite's gelatinous form is able to reach into its victims' bodies, breaking down and absorbing all of their internal organs in a matter of seconds, without releasing the anesthetic that the organism naturally produces. The hybrid is contained and neutralized by security personnel equipped with liquid nitrogen canisters, freezing the creature solid until its augmented body shatters. Foundation higher-ups deem the death toll incurred by the containment breach to be acceptable losses. Further experimentation into using SCP-751 for human organ transplants is set to continue shortly, and who knows what horrors may come from it. Its leathery wings spread out, tattooed in arcane symbols of cultures long wiped out. Its clawed feet pad the linoleum, each step leaving a black scorch mark that stinks of brimstone. Steaming drool drips from the creature's burning tusks, nestled in concentric circles beneath its glowing, blood-red eyes. Its terrible gaze has already locked onto its prey, its quarry, and nothing will possibly deter it from getting what it wants. Fair trade organic bananas, 25% off.
What a steal.
The college student awakens in his trash dorm after another night of debauchery. His head is swimming. His tongue feels like sandpaper. The room is littered with empty cans, solo cups, and bottles, and his roommate is still out cold next to him, having had his face graffitied by some jokester with a black marker. But the college student isn't thinking about the night before. Not that he could remember any of it anyway. He's thinking about his rumbling stomach. He needs to get some food and a drink in him or else he's going to feel terrible all day. He knows exactly what he needs. A bacon omelet and a tall, cool glass of OJ, the breakfast of champions. There's only one problem. When the college student checks the communal fridge, he sees that there is no orange juice and no eggs. That's when a flood of memories washes over him, less like a cool, refreshing sea breeze and more like being waterboarded. The previous night, he and his idiot friends had made that delicious, life-saving orange juice disappear into a series of screwdrivers, and in their altered state, they'd thrown all the eggs at each other.
Man, he thinks, this is embarrassing. I've really got to get my act together.
But before he can get any sweeping life changes put in place, he still needs to solve the breakfast conundrum. Bacon omelet and a tall glass of OJ or bust. He throws on a light jacket, puts on his shoes, makes sure his roommate is lying on his side just to be safe, and heads out into town. That's where he'll find the means to make his breakfast dreams a reality. On his omelet odyssey, the college student passes a few of the local boutique cafes. They probably have what he needs, but on a student's budget, especially considering the money he probably blew on the previous night's rager. He thinks it's more economical to just buy the ingredients and make the breakfast himself. His mom and dad had always told him that college was about building life skills, after all. But that's when a second problem presents itself. For some reason, every grocery store or supermarket he passes seems to be closed. What gives? Is it some kind of national holiday that had somehow slipped his mind? As his hungover head pounds like someone installed a tiny construction worker with a pneumatic drill inside his brain, the hopelessness of this whole situation is beginning to dawn on him. Is he doomed to an omelet-free hell of his own making, just for the crime of wanting to have fun on a Saturday night? Life can be so cruel sometimes. But in the college student's lowest moment, a glimmer of hope presents itself. It seems he's absent-mindedly wandered off the beaten track, far closer to the edge of town than he'd intended to go. And while he's there, he spots what could be his salvation. It looks like a store, an honest-to-goodness supermarket, with the sign above the entrance reading, Babylon's. With a newly formed spring in his step, the college student makes a beeline. He can taste that hearty omelet and dose of vitamin C already. Once inside, the college student wastes no time looking for his eggs and OJ. Nothing about the store seems particularly strange until he ends up face to face with one of the people working there.
Typically, he's used to seeing people his age or even younger working as store assistants. The man he's staring at has got to be in his mid-40s, and despite his somewhat dweeby uniform, he's one of the most intimidating people the college student has ever seen. His large, muscular arms bulge out of the baby blue uniform shirt, covered in what looks like intimidating gang tats. The man's head is completely shaved, with a long scar underneath one eye and a series of teardrop tattoos under the other. The college student can't help but think, holy hell, have they started hiring death row inmates here? Strangely, this incredibly scary man looks more nervous to see the college student in here. Like having a customer in the store was a scenario they somehow hadn't covered in the employee training manual. The college student politely insists that he won't need any help. He's just here for eggs and a carton of orange juice. As he walks further into the store, the college student can't help but realize that the strange man isn't an outlier. Anytime he sees an employee of the store, they're a large, beefy man covered in tattoos who looks like he should be doing 25 to life in San Quentin. He's wondering if maybe the store is getting a tax break for hiring ex-cons when he sees something strange down the aisle in front of him, loitering in the refrigerated section. It's mist, but not the kind of dispersed mist you see out in the world. It's more like a solid column of mist. If the college student didn't know any better, he might have even thought that the column of mist was oddly humanoid. But he blinks and the mist is gone. So maybe it was just some strange product of his hungover imagination. He thinks, man, I hope I didn't party so hard I gave myself brain damage. He continues his egg quest, undeterred by the strangeness that he's seen so far. But another problem seems to be presenting itself. All of the products here are a little strange and unfamiliar. Without even trying, he's somehow found himself in the candy section, and despite having a youthful sweet tooth, he doesn't recognize any of the brands around him. One that catches his eye is a ghost-shaped candy labeled Candied Souls, which he thinks to be a strangely morbid name. He gives the candy a light squish to see if it's gummy or a hard candy, but when he does, it lets out an almost imperceptible ghostly wail. The noise is still enough to shock the college student into dropping it. The candied soul falls to the ground, where it bounces once and then comes to rest. He looks up to the section on the shelf he picked it up from, and to his astonishment, a new one appears to replace the other one, right before his eyes. It just materializes out of thin air. Impossible. Before the college student's mind can even process all the implications of the thing he's just seen, he turns to see an immense being entering the aisle next to him, shaking the ground with each footstep. It's easily 7 or 8 feet tall, with leathery, dragon-like skin and long, twisted horns emerging out of its skull. The monster lumbers, its tail whipping with excitement, its fangs borne. The monster speaks in a deep, rumbling voice like a volcano preparing to erupt.
Oh, they've got a special on candied souls. It's my lucky day.
Without a moment's hesitation, the college student screams and runs in the opposite direction. There's a monster in the store, a demon, something straight out of hell. And even though the demon doesn't seem to be behaving aggressively, in fact, it's downright confused as to why the college student decided to scream and run, the college student is racked with mortal fear. Screw the orange juice, screw the omelet, he needs to get out of here before he's turned into breakfast. In fear's grasp, he isn't thinking logically. He's just running around the store in incoherent terror, trying not to be caught by beings that aren't even chasing him. Strangely, he does notice out of the corner of his eye that the staff aren't freaking out. They're acting like the freakish creature in the store is perfectly normal, just another run-of-the-mill customer. This place is clearly completely insane. On the way to the exit, the college student finds himself frozen at the front windows, staring out at the madness occurring in the parking lot. A series of cars have pulled up on the asphalt as the doors of the cars open, and a menagerie of nightmarish impossibilities pour out. Gooey insectoid beasts with a horrifying number of legs. Long, coiling snake-like entities covered in thorns. Beasts made entirely of blood-colored slime. Winged horrors covered in eyes. So many things beyond description. The college student's mind can barely process what he's seeing. While he's got hell amassing in front of him, the college student has no idea that heaven is getting closer and closer behind. He feels a strange warmth, unlike anything he's ever experienced, spreading across his back. A voice that seems to speak straight to his soul says,
Excuse me.
When the college student sees the creature standing behind him, his eyes begin to water in pure reverence. It's a being torn out of the most ancient scriptures, almost impossible for the brain to comprehend. A series of spinning golden rings, covered in eyes of every color, wreathed in fire, and topped by a number of floating crowns. Behind it, 6 wings as pure and white as untouched snow beat magnificently. Any thought of eggs or orange juice is wiped from the college student's mind by the mere sight of it before him.
"Be not afraid,"
the angelic creature says.
"I was just wondering if you knew where I could find some toilet paper in here."
The college student isn't interested in telling the impossible creature where it can find the toilet paper. He just wants to get out of this store. He just wants to survive. If he gets out of here alive, he swears he'll never party again. In a moment of lucidity, he sees the exit and runs for it, knowing this might be his only chance to survive the morning. He runs, trying to purge the angelic splendor from his eyes. When his feet hit the blacktop outside, he knows he's got a chance, even if the parking lot is full of demons and heavenly beings. But he doesn't expect to see a number of black tactical vehicles screech into the parking lot as men in suits and sunglasses pour out of the vehicles. They don't seem like they're here to help. They seem like they're here to get him. The college student does his best to frantically explain himself. "Wait, please, I just wanted some eggs and OJ! I just wanted some eggs and OJ!" But his protests are cut off when one of the men gets him in a headlock and forces a rag covered in chloroform over his face. Darkness falls. When the college student wakes up, he's in his dorm room again, surrounded by the same trash and the same graffitied sleeping roommate. He has no memories of the events that transpired before. All he knows is that he's hungry and thirsty. He drags himself up off the ground, head pounding, and schleps his way over to the fridge. An omelet and a glass of orange juice sound good right about now. And lucky for him, when he opens his fridge, a carton of eggs and a carton of orange juice are both waiting for him, though he's not sure why he bought the OJ with pulp. This is hardly a normal retail experience, unless you find yourself shopping at SCP-2854, also codenamed the Little Shop Mart of Horrors, though it's best known to its customers as Babylons. To the untrained eye, it appears to be an abandoned supermarket located 3 kilometers from Foundation Containment Site 118, but to those with the proper clearances, it's known to be a bizarre menagerie of anomalous phenomena. During the anomalous supermarket's business hours, cars will appear in the parking lot, delivering instances of the entities known as SCP-2854-1. These entities can manifest in a variety of forms, some of which we still haven't received full documentation on, but here are some of the primary documented forms. First, the incorporeal forms. One of them is a form with visible eyes wrapped in long lengths of intangible chains. The others are mist-like creatures with no discernible facial features. The corporeal beings are considerably more intimidating to look at. These include angelic entities in the biblically accurate sense, with many wings and eyes, and their counterparts, large entities that appear consistent with the multiplicity of demons described in Christian mythology. In terms of general layout, Babylon's is not dissimilar to your typical small independent supermarket. There are checkout lanes, a stock room, and multiple aisles of products. I imagine you're probably wondering what kind of products they sell at Babylon's, and lucky for you, we have some declassified files on that too. One available confectionery product is a candy labeled Candied Souls, a gummy shaped like a cartoon ghost, packaged in pink wrapping paper. They also sell eggs holding tridents, producing flame from an unknown source in an airtight red container adorned with pentagrams. They're labeled deviled eggs. For those with more carnivorous tastes, there are hot dogs with 3 separate cylindrical-shaped heads that each bark independently of each other, wrapped in a plastic container labeled Demon Dogs. And of course, there is green-colored bread in the shape of humanoid entities undergoing an advanced state of decomposition, wrapped in a plastic container labeled Unbread. Very cute, I'm sure you'll agree. When the products are removed from the shelves, they will regenerate automatically, with the speed of their regeneration depending on the level of demand for the product in the store. The longest interval for regeneration is 30 minutes. The shortest is 1 second. Where the products come from is still a mystery. The currency that the SCP-2854-1 entities pay for the products with is also unidentified. It's paper currency, written in an unknown script, with a picture of a gnome on it. Once the products have been purchased, the entities will return to their card and demanifest. A perfectly reasonable transaction, in a manner of speaking. The Foundation was doing an admirable job keeping this anomaly contained, but like many small businesses, Babylon soon found its clientele being poached by the local Walmart. This was the cause of the currently most conspicuous containment breach, Incident 2854-A. 2 instances of SCP-2854-1, which the Foundation has since learned were named Gregory and Alma, manifested outside the anomalous store, only to find that it was closed and devoid of personnel. The 2 impossible entities returned to their car and disappeared before appearing at a Walmart in Wilmington, North Carolina, for some late-night shopping. As Gregory and Alma entered the store, audio and video were recorded by the in-store CCTV cameras, and an immediate look of terror was plastered across the faces of everyone in their proximity. Gregory walked forward, trying to get a sense of the store's layout while scratching his head with long claws. He murmured out in a deep, demonic voice,
This sucks. Babylon's was closed, and now we're forced to go to a different supermarket. I hope that we don't have to do this on a daily basis.
Alma, who trailed not far behind him, said,
Well, maybe we'll get lucky, and Babylon's will be open later. We can always go back to check. You don't have to go here if you don't want to.
Gregory grumbled.
We already walked in the door. We have a commitment to shop here now. Hey, there's an employee. Maybe he can help us.
The employee was turned in the opposite direction, doing a listless stocktake on a ratty old clipboard as the 2 entities approached. Gregory politely asked where they could find the organic produce section. They were from out of town and had never visited a Walmart. Just as the employee was mindlessly droning out that the organic produce could be found on aisle 4, he turned and saw who, or what, he was actually talking to. His eyes teared up despite himself. His legs began to tremble. It was impossible. He had to be seeing things, but he wasn't. He clenched his jaw and braced for death, but instead, he got a jolt of energy. He turned and ran, screaming that there were monsters in the store. Gregory and Alma gave chase, still confused about where to find the organic produce they'd come in looking for. As they called for the employee to slow down, he just screamed louder and made a beeline for the exit, followed by a stampede of panicked customers. Gregory grimaced, confused, and muttered,
Well, crap. The customer service here is terrible.
Guess whose idea it was to shop here, Gregory?
quipped Alma.
Oh, shut up, Alma. We'll find it on our own.
As Alma and Gregory split up to explore the store, hoping the organic produce revealed itself, a night guard frantically called the police, ranting and raving about actual monsters having invaded the store. This was only going to make the chaos worse, as 3 different groups were alerted by the call: the local Wilmington Police, the SCP Foundation, and the Unusual Incidents Unit. For those not aware, the Unusual Incidents Unit is one of the more obscure and ineffectual groups of interest that the SCP Foundation occasionally both collaborates and clashes with. They're the anomalous department of the FBI, investigating cases of an unusual nature. They're highly understaffed, underfunded, and under-equipped compared to the SCP Foundation, and even the Global Occult Coalition. Most of the time, they inconvenience the Foundation by getting under their feet during important investigations. This was yet another one of these instances. Soon enough, a blockade of UIU agents and standard, non-anomalous police were marshaled around the Walmart, yelling over a loudspeaker for Gregory and Alma to come out and surrender. Naturally, this made them start bickering again.
Guess our shopping trip attracted more attention than we thought.
What was your first clue? The panicking customers? Maybe the cashier that thought we were psychos? Wow, how could you possibly figure that out, Gregory? You must be a genius or something.
Oh, just shut up, Alma. That attitude of yours is getting on my last goddamn nerve. Let's just go, okay? They're not going to let us leave peacefully anyway.
Gregory and Alma exited Walmart, at which point they were mobbed and apprehended by the UIU agents, at which point the SCP Foundation arrived to take over the situation. They contained Gregory and Alma harmlessly in Type 3 spectral mutagen allocators. Everyone in attendance was amnesticized and then released, all no thanks to the UIU. Since Incident 2854-A was documented, the Foundation has classified SCP-2854 as Euclid and modified its containment procedures accordingly. The Foundation purchased the land on which the seemingly abandoned store is located and erected a 2-meter-tall chain-link fence around the perimeter. The store is staffed by a rotating collection of D-Class and undercover Foundation agents, who are to remain up to date on the placement of products within the store so as to better assist the SCP-2854-1 instances. Satisfied customers are less likely to shop elsewhere, after all. The embedded personnel take an active role in the containment of SCP-2854-1 instances within a 5-mile radius of SCP-2854. Anyone who requests a transfer will be given a complimentary course of Class A amnestics to ensure that they won't carry any of the memories to their next assignment. I imagine most people working in retail wish that their employers had similar procedures. As a regular patron of my own local corner store, I can confirm that trying to find reasonable prices these days is its own special circle in the Inferno. But as long as we don't find ourselves wandering the Isles of Babylons, then perhaps we could all be doing a lot worse.
Emily huddled in the corner of the bathroom stall. Her lunch lay untouched on her lap as she nervously reviewed her exam material. Outside the walls of the stall, classmates chatted about makeup and crushes. The bell rang and the schoolgirls poured out of the bathroom. Emily took a deep breath and stepped out of the stall. She washed her hands, all the while avoiding looking down at them. She knew her fingertips were a mess, raw and slightly bleeding. She stared straight ahead at the mirror, muttering reassurances to herself. "You can do this. You're going to pass this exam." The hallways were silent and deserted as Emily stopped at her classroom door. She looked through the window at the neat rows of desks. Sat behind each one was a student, exuding calmness, ready for the exam. It was so different from her own frazzled appearance. Her breath shook and her hand trembled as she pushed the door open, its creak echoing in the quiet hallway. As she entered the classroom, some students looked up and snickered, but Emily was focused. She needed to find her seat and pass this test. The classroom seemed to blur around her as she focused on the exam paper in front of her. Her anxiety hit a peak, and her fingers automatically moved to her mouth. As Emily attacked her exam questions and her fingertips with equal ferocity, whispers turned to gasps, then to screams. "She's a monster!" one student cried out. Emily, deeply absorbed, kept writing, unaware of the chaos brewing around her. Confronted with the final question of the exam, Emily bit down on her fingernail until a loud crunch filled the room. A few students fainted. One vomited. The rest were in too much shock to react. When the teacher came over to help, Emily, still lost in her exam, accidentally shoved her away. Blood was sent splattering across the floor and onto her paper. Emily's eyes moved from her stunned teacher to her own hands, her expression turning to horror. Still, her mind urged her on. Wipe the blood away, keep writing. She continued until paramedics arrived and pulled her from her desk. In the plain, clinical office of the psychiatrist, Emily sat with her injured finger tightly wrapped in gauze. Blood still seeped through, staining it red. The psychiatrist, a woman with a calm yet assertive manner, started to discuss everything that led to her being committed to this facility. Unaware, Emily began nibbling on her other hand. "Do you know what a coping mechanism is?" the psychiatrist asked in a gentle but firm tone. Emily, her eyes misting with tears, shook her head slightly, while her hand moved instinctively to her mouth. "It's something you do to reduce stress or discomfort," the psychiatrist explained, observing Emily closely. "But if it hurts you, it's considered maladaptive, like your nail biting." Emily stopped biting and clenched her hand into a fist in her lap, fighting the urge. "Do you remember the first time you started biting your nails?" the psychiatrist asked. Emily nodded, her mind drifting back to a dark memory she wished she could forget. "It was years ago," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I was just a little girl." She described the night it all started, her father drunk and aggressive, her mother coming home late to spark a violent argument. Sent to her room, Emily listened as the noise grew, yelling, something breaking, a loud thud. Curiosity drew her out, only to find her mother on the floor, her father standing over her, anger coursing through every sinew. That's when Emily started crying uncontrollably until she bit her tongue. The pain cut through her sobs. "That was when I learned that pain," Emily said, looking into the psychiatrist's eyes. "Pain could silence the fear, the anxiety. It made everything quiet." The psychiatrist wrote this down, her face reflecting deep consideration. "You've carried this way of coping into your adolescence," she noted. "Now we need to find healthier ways for you to manage your feelings." Emily watched the psychiatrist, her feelings a tangle of fear and hope. As her fingers slowly moved back toward her mouth, the psychiatrist handed her a small, bright ball. "Let's keep your hands busy," she suggested. Emily took the ball and squeezed it, shifting her focus to the pressure in her grasp rather than the pain. Later that day, in the recreation room, Emily couldn't help but feel like she'd accidentally stumbled into a preschool class, not a psychiatric facility. There she was, notably the eldest, towering over kids like a giant. Their little hands were fitted with bandages, a telltale sign that they all shared a fondness for compulsive habits. It should have made her fit right in. It didn't. Emily gripped the stress ball as she took a seat in one of the small chairs. She thought about playing checkers with the boy seated beside her, but decided against it. Instead, she started peeling away the gauze from her finger. The room went quiet. The children watched, their expressions a mix of curiosity and awe. The little boy next to her fidgeted, uneasy. "We're not supposed to do that," he murmured, his voice filled with a mix of fear and fascination. Emily gave a half smile, her face showing a blend of sadness and defiance. "Sometimes the rules are too hard to keep," she whispered, tossing him the stress ball. As Emily pulled off the final layer of bandages, revealing the raw, sensitive skin underneath, a noticeable shift occurred among the watching children. They looked at their own wrapped hands, and then back at Emily. Emily's small act of defiance seemed to linger heavily in the room. Within moments, all the children began unwrapping their bandages and feasting on their nails and fingertips. Recognizing Emily's potential to influence the other children, the staff decided to place her in solitary confinement. The room was stark, equipped only with a chair and a camera to record every moment under close surveillance. The psychiatrist glared at Emily, while the nurses tightly secured her limbs to the chair with leather straps to prevent self-harm. "You started a feeding frenzy," the psychiatrist sternly said, watching Emily's reaction closely. "You can't bite your nails in front of the kids." With that, she turned on her heel and slammed the door shut, leaving Emily alone. Only the closed-circuit television kept her company, the prying eyes beyond watching her, staring at her. Confined, Emily's anxiety soared to new heights. Every single movement caused the restraints to strain and dig into her skin, a stark reminder of her confinement. Overwhelmed by a growing desperation, she gnawed at the leather straps with unexpected ferocity. Her teeth had become surprisingly sharp, her desperation transforming them into something wild and untamed. Maybe she was a monster. Would that be such a bad thing? Monsters are strong. Monsters aren't broken or afraid. Monsters are survivors. Once free of her shackles, Emily quickly removed the remaining gauze from her hands. Beneath the wraps, her fingers had undergone a shocking change. They were no longer topped with human nails, but had morphed into sharp, black, chitinous points. A wild giggle escaped her as she looked over her new claws. A wave of power washed over her, wiping away any remnants of the fragile, subdued girl she had once been. Turning to face the camera that had been watching her every move, her eyes glinted with a fierce, unsettling joy. She lunged at the lens, attacking it with her new claws. The camera vibrated violently as her last look, a chilling, victorious smirk, fizzed into static before the screen abruptly went black. She had become SCP-8480-A. SCP-8480, classified with a containment class of Keter, a disruption class of Eki, and a risk class of Critical, refers to an anomalous mental disorder affecting children aged 3 to 14, known as SCP-8480-1 instances. These children exhibit a range of symptoms from moderate to severe anxiety, headaches or migraines, intensive nail biting, onychophagia,
skin-eating dermatophagia, unusually rapid healing, and a high tolerance for pain in their digits. The disorder typically activates under conditions of extreme, persistent anxiety or traumatic experiences, particularly if the child uses nail biting as a coping mechanism during such times. Following infection, the progression of symptoms in SCP-8480-1 instances varies depending on internal and external stress factors. A significant number of cases may persist into adulthood without clear symptoms. Currently, a substantial number of infected children, recorded in the thousands, are under the care of the Foundation, having been committed before reaching the age of 15. A notable subject, SCP-8480-A, or Emily Curtis, age 20, was significantly older than typical instances at the time of discovery. Stage 1 of SCP-8480 can initiate any time before adolescence, typically affecting children around the age of 9, although cases as young as 3 months have been noted. Diagnosing infants is challenging as they lack teeth. Early signs often exude sucking on fingers or gumming their limbs. Regardless of age, SCP-8480-1 instances exhibit initial symptoms within 2 to 3 days of the triggering event. During this stage, instances commonly experience low to moderate anxiety throughout most days. They may also suffer from mild physical discomforts, such as stomach aches or headaches, which are frequently dismissed as common childhood complaints. Moreover, these children develop various maladaptive coping strategies, including skin picking, hair pulling, and notably, nail biting, which they often describe as providing the most relief. A troubling psychological symptom is the onset of a deep-seated belief among the affected children that there is something fundamentally wrong with them, which cannot be corrected. It remains unclear whether this belief is a direct symptom of SCP-8480 or a psychological side effect of the disorder. Without intervention, children typically progress to Stage 2 within 6 months to a year from the appearance of the first symptoms. Stage 2, referred to as stasis, marks a deepening of the initial symptoms observed in SCP-8480-1 instances. In this stage, the afflicted children become heavily dependent on their maladaptive coping mechanisms to manage their emotional states. Despite attempts through medical, psychological, or therapeutic interventions, these behaviors persist unabated and intensify. During Stage 2, instances notably increase their reliance on nail biting and skin eating, which are used consistently to regulate their emotions. This escalation in behavior frequently results in physical injury, with instances often experiencing bleeding due to the severity of their actions. SCP-8480-1 instances are capable of remaining in this stage indefinitely. Notably, SCP-8480-A is the oldest recorded instance who had remained in Stage 2 until just before being admitted into Foundation care. Progression to Stage 3 occurs only after an SCP-8480-1 instance endures a significant and prolonged period of stress, anxiety, and traumatic experiences. The specific circumstances that catalyze this transition vary from individual to individual, making it challenging to predict exactly what will trigger the advancement to Stage 3. Stage 3, termed Complete Infection, marks a critical phase for SCP-8480-1 instances, where mitigation of symptoms and reduction of self-inflicted injuries become the primary focus, as further recovery is not feasible. In this stage, all previous symptoms escalate from moderate to severe, accompanied by several distinct and severe anomalous effects. The skin and muscles in the fingers and hands of affected individuals soften significantly, making them more susceptible to damage. Biting their fingers, nail beds, or hands triggers the production of nerve blockers and endorphins in the brain. This adaptation reduces pain and provides a brief sensation of pleasure, complicating the cessation of these behaviors. The hardening of the teeth enables instances to bite through not just flesh, but also bone, intensifying the severity of their condition. Anomalous cellular regeneration is heightened, leading to rapid tissue repair and forcing a cyclical pattern of self-consumption to manage emotional distress. Instances develop a compulsive need to consume the flesh and nails around their fingers, driven by their accelerated healing rates. Affected subjects experience a profound psychological impact, feeling fundamentally broken and no longer identifying as human. This manifests in a loss of interest in normal human activities, including eating anything other than their own body. Current research efforts are directed towards finding potential cures or methods to neutralize SCP-8480. However, no effective treatment has been discovered yet. Instances in Stage 3 will persist in this state until their biological functions cease, underscoring the dire nature of this advanced stage of SCP-8480. Stage 4, known as Reclamation, represents a profound transformation in SCP-8480-1 instances, believed to occur after a period of deep self-reflection and acceptance of the traumas that triggered their condition. This stage is only reached when an instance stops the constant self-consumption of their fingernails and surrounding tissues. The symptoms characteristic of Stage 4 include complete cessation of pain, although it remains unclear whether this lack of sensation is due to physiological changes or psychological factors. A significant reduction in anxiety levels, which drop to minor or negligible. The nature of this reduction, whether anomalous or not, is yet to be determined. While compulsive behaviors like nail biting and skin eating cease, subjects continue to exhibit other maladaptive coping mechanisms and signs of psychological distress. The development of black chitinous growths in place of fingernails, which are capable of cutting through metal, stone, and organic materials, marking a significant physical anomaly. Enhanced physical capabilities, including increased strength, endurance, and metabolism, which contribute to a heightened state of existence. Marked increase in hostility towards Foundation staff, coupled with a refusal to remain in containment, posing significant challenges to management and security. Due to these complexities and the substantial threat posed to normalcy, containment protocols for SCP-8480-1 instances in Stage 4 have been entirely revised. All previous treatment approaches have been suspended indefinitely, reflecting a shift in strategy in response to the unique challenges presented by this advanced stage. All SCP-8480-1 instances are mandated to be isolated and contained at Site 80-P, ostensibly under extended psychiatric care. Bandages, gauze, splints, and casts are provided only upon the instance's request. A critical part of the containment strategy involves placing any potential SCP-8480-1 instance in a controlled, traumatic scenario post-identification, without the awareness of the subject or their guardians. Should symptoms escalate after the induced trauma, the individual is immediately transferred to Foundation custody. Strictly, Foundation staff are prohibited from offering counseling, support, or any mental health treatments to SCP-8480-1 instances. Furthermore, these instances are not discouraged from engaging in maladaptive auto-cannibalism, as this behavior has shown to deter the progression to Stage 4. Consequently, SCP-8480-1 instances require minimal sustenance, only needing food and water once a month, and are kept in solitary confinement continuously. SCP-8480-A, identified for aggressive immediate measures, is to be neutralized upon detection, with remains to be sent back to Site 80-P for detailed analysis and further study. Now go and watch another entry from the files of Dr. Bob that will make you question whether your nail biting is just a bad habit or an anomaly in the making. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single anomaly as we delve further and further into the SCP Foundation's classified archives.